Stop everything for 5 seconds, because what you're about to hear could be the beginning of your healing. There's a pain you've been feeling for a long time, an emptiness no one understands, a weight that follows you even when everything seems peaceful on the outside. And the craziest part, it's not just your body that's hurting, it's your soul trying to speak, so left behind a spiritual code hidden for millennia. And it starts exactly at that part of your body that keeps aching. If you're watching this, it's because the code found you, and I'm about to show you the first sign. Take a deep breath and feel where your biggest tension is right now. What you just felt isn't random. It's the beginning of what the ancients called the spirit's message embodied in matter, but most people ignore this calling. And when you ignore what the soul is trying to say, the body has to scream. But now that you've heard it, even if just for a second, something has begun to open. And if you stay until the end, I'll show you how to turn that point of pain into the most powerful portal of vibrational healing Thoth ever revealed. But first, you need to learn to listen with different eyes, because the body never screams for nothing. Every illness of this body is an echo of the forgotten soul. To heal is to remember yourself. The medicine we know today is, at best, just a piece, a loose fragment of a much older and more complete knowledge that was dismantled, filtered, and eventually forgotten. The ancient peoples knew that the body wasn't just a biological machine. It was a sacred vessel, a temple that mirrored the inner state of the soul. That's why every healing was a ritual, and every illness a symbol. In ancient Egypt, a physician wasn't just someone who knew about herbs. They were also a priest, an initiate in the mysteries of energy and consciousness. The Ebis Papyrus, one of the oldest medical records in history, describes not only physical treatments, but also prayers, chants, symbols. There, the same illness could be treated with a natural formula or a sacred sound, because they knew the body reacts to what is physical, but also responds to what is invisible. The Vedic tradition carried the same understanding. The body was seen as a vibrational instrument of the soul, and each organ had a direct connection to subtle energy centers known as chakras. When a chakra was blocked, it wasn't enough to drink tea or take a remedy. It was necessary to restore harmony between mind, emotion, and spirit. And that restoration involved sound, color, breath, silence, detachment, and deep meditation. It was a medicine of wholeness. For the shamans of pre-colonial America, the origin of disease ran even deeper. Soul loss. Something would happen, a trauma, an injustice, an unacknowledged pain, and part of the person's vital energy would be lost, disconnected from the body. The result? An inner emptiness that sooner or later became a symptom. Healing was the return of that lost part, and the process involved singing sacred plants, ritual, spiritual connection, and above all, truth. None of these traditions saw illness as an enemy. They all saw illness as a sign, a call to awaken, an invitation to reconnect what had been separated. Because for the ancients, everything was interconnected. The body, the mind, the spirit, the cosmos. And the human being was a living synthesis of it all, a microcosm reflecting the macrocosm. That's why they used sound to heal, not out of superstition, but because they knew that vibration reorganizes matter. Pythagoras said that certain musical notes were capable of realigning the body with universal harmony. For him, music was more than art. It was a bridge between chaos and balance. It was a kind of vibrational surgery. Plato went further. He said, "There's no true healing of the body without healing the soul. And if the soul was sick, no medicine would work." Empedocles, another philosopher from ancient Greece, associated the 4 elements of nature with human temperaments. Fire, water, air, earth. All of them were within us, and if one of them was in excess or lacking, the body got sick. But the adjustment wasn't made only with food or physical practices. It was made through inspection, contemplation, reconnection. This knowledge wasn't isolated. It was present in every corner of the world. In Taoism, Tibetan medicine, the indigenous traditions of Africa and Oceania, there was a common wisdom, a silent language that crossed continents without needing translation. Illness was never just an anomaly in the body, it was the echo of something misaligned on deeper layers. But over time, that knowledge was stripped away. Slowly, the spiritual was separated from the physical. The sacred was labeled as superstition. Medicine became more and more technical, fragmented, mechanical. It started treating organs like machine parts, prescribing formulas that completely ignored what the patient felt, thought, or carried in their heart. The connection was cut. The ritual became a protocol. Silence was replaced by tests, the soul forgotten. And modern medicine, despite its incredible advances, began to fail where it mattered most, at the invisible root of pain. But knowledge never truly disappears. It falls asleep, and when the right time comes, it rises to the surface again, like now. The question you may not have asked yet is, why was this knowledge erased? Who benefited from cutting the connection between body and spirit? That's exactly what you're about to discover next. When the soul breaks, the body feels it, the emptiness science can't explain. When the soul stopped being taken into account, the body began to scream on its own. But the body's scream, no matter how loud, was never the problem itself. It's just the echo of a deeper rupture, an almost invisible break, but one silently felt by thousands of people every day. This rupture has a name. The ancients called it soul loss. Not in the sense that the soul disappears, but that part of it fragments, distances itself, dissociates from the body when the emotional impact is too great to process. This can happen because of trauma, denied pain, sudden separation, or an injustice experienced without support. It can happen in childhood. It can happen in adulthood. And the most remarkable part, often, you don't even notice. You just feel like something's not right. A lingering apathy, a sadness without reason, a constant feeling of living on autopilot, eyes open but soul asleep. On the outside, you function, but inside you're disconnected. This kind of emptiness doesn't show up in tests. Science even tries to name it depression, adjustment disorder, chronic anxiety. But those names don't explain the cause. They describe what's visible, but don't reach what was lost. And what was lost can't be treated with pills. Because what's missing isn't serotonin, it's connection. Soul loss makes you feel out of place, like you're living a life that isn't yours. Like you've forgotten something really important, but you don't know what it is. It's like walking through fog. Deep down, you feel there's a purpose, that there's a force waiting for you somewhere. But that force feels far away, and the more you chase it outside, the further it seems to get. What almost no one tells you is that part of your soul didn't completely leave. Yes, it stepped back, but it stays close, quiet, waiting for the right moment to return. And that moment begins when you stop running from the pain and start listening to what's behind it. The ancient shamans had specific practices for this. They didn't ask what the symptom was. They asked, when did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? When did you forget who you were? Because for them, illness wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign that the soul had gone quiet. And the silence of the soul is the source of most human suffering. It's this silence that turns into nameless anguish, into sleepless nights, into recurring illnesses that always return to the same place. There's no point treating the symptom if the root is still wounded. But there is something even more powerful than trauma, and that is your ability to bring that soul back. Because what was fragmented can be restored, but not with haste, and not under pressure. The return of the soul is a delicate process. It begins when you acknowledge the emptiness, when you stop numbing the pain with distractions, and decide for the first time to sit in front of it and ask, what are you trying to show me? That's the moment when energy starts to reorganize. The spiritual field that was broken begins to send out new signals, small flickers, intuitions, sensations that feel familiar. But at the same time, it's your being saying coming back. And this return doesn't happen all at once. The soul doesn't invade. It approaches slowly, and for that, it needs space. That's why it's so important to open that space internally, a space of listening, of presence, of stillness, a space where the soul feels it can inhabit again. Healing begins when the space opens, but the path back only continues when you learn to identify where that energy was lost. Because there's an exact point, a memory, a scene, moment where something broke. And that's exactly where we're going now. It's at that point when the soul starts to come closer, that the body can finally show what it's been trying to say for so long, because it never stopped speaking. It was just using a language you haven't learned to understand yet. But now, you start to listen differently. And when you listen differently, you start to see differently. And when you see differently, you start to heal. The body doesn't manifest pain by chance. Every discomfort, every inflammation, every affected organ carries a story. And that story is written with invisible symbols, etched not on the skin, but on the most subtle layers of your experience. The body became the only channel capable of expressing what the mind tried to deny and the heart couldn't handle. It's like an encoded manuscript, and each pain is a word, each symptom a paragraph, each illness a chapter still waiting to be read. The liver, for example, is one of the body's greatest emotional mirrors. The ancients taught that it stores unexpressed anger, not the explosive kind that comes out in shouting, but the silent kind that stays bottled up. Constant frustration, swallowed injustice, the unspoken, that piled up for months, years, decades. When you feel a strange heat in your body, a constant bitterness and irritation you can't explain, maybe it's not physical, maybe it's your liver trying to remind you of everything you quietly accepted. The lungs carry a different frequency. They hold grief, loss, deep sadness. People who have faced separations, deaths, abandonment, or long periods of loneliness often develop respiratory issues. Breathing becomes shallow, the chest feels tight. It's not just oxygen that's missing, it's inner space to feel. Because the lungs don't just want to breathe, they want to let go. The stomach, in turn, is an emotional alchemist. It digests food, but also emotions. When you can't digest a situation, a conversation, a humiliation, the stomach contracts, it burns, it closes up, it responds. Reflux, gastritis, and unexplained discomforts can be direct reflections of an emotional field trying to process something that got stuck. Because for the body, what wasn't emotionally digested turns into physical acidity. And then there are the knees, which symbolize humility. They represent the ability to adapt, to kneel internally, to accept change. Persistent knee pain often appears in people who have difficulty yielding, who resist change, who fight the natural flow of life. The ego hardens, and the knees, which should be flexible, begin to stiffen too. The lower back holds weight, literally. The load you don't share, the responsibility you carry alone. Many back pains don't come from poor posture, but from stories you carry, as if the whole world depends on you. And the spine, overloaded, starts to give away, because it wasn't meant to carry everything alone, and maybe neither were you. The feet, linked to movement, represent walking. Recurring pain in the feet, ankles, and legs is often connected to difficulty moving forward, taking the next step, letting go of the past. You want to move, but something holds you back. You try to push ahead, but you feel stuck. The body feels that, and it signals nothing heals from the outside. And vibration is the origin of everything. And when you start to notice what each part of your body is trying to say, something even deeper is revealed. Because the symptom doesn't just point to a specific emotion or trauma. It marks a sacred point, a portal, a break in ordinary time, a space where density cracks and light can enter. The ancients knew this. Thoth taught that pain was never the end of anything. It was the beginning of vibrational. Portal that only opened when the being was ready to cross to the other side. But this portal doesn't look magical, and it doesn't come with warning signs. It reveals itself inside your wound, the one that's been silently bleeding for years, the one you tried to ignore. The one that kept coming back, even after all your efforts to forget. That's the key, because the wound isn't just showing you where it hurts. It's showing you where there's passage, where you have direct access to the most vulnerable, and therefore most powerful part of yourself. But unlike what you were taught, this is not a place to run from. It's a place to go through. Have you ever felt that certain pains changed how you see the world? That after a fall, a loss, or a crisis, something inside you opened, as if the pain broke the shell and something true was born from it. That's not romanticizing suffering. It's the oldest wisdom there is, because where there's a break, there's space. And where there's space, light enters. That light is awareness. It's truth. It's remembrance. It's the beginning of a new creation. But it doesn't force its way in. It doesn't invade. It only enters if you allow it. And allowing is the deepest act of spiritual courage. Because it's not comfortable, it's not pretty, it's intimate, it's raw. But it's also liberating. Imagine pain as a crack in a dark wall. When you try to cover it quickly, it keeps spreading. When you ignore it, it deepens. But when you approach it, when you touch it with presence, with listening, with love, you realize that it's through that crack that the light is trying to come through. And most importantly, it's that light that turns pain into a portal. Hermetic teachings speak of this. In other words, they say that everything dense can be transmuted, that the lead of human experience can become spiritual gold. But for that to happen, the lead needs to be heated. It needs to be exposed to the fire of consciousness. And that fire, many times, is pain. The wound only becomes healing when you move through it with awareness. Not when you pretend it doesn't exist. Not when you run. But when you enter, when you feel, when you dive in. Because it's in there at the exact point of pain. That the access is hidden. An access that no theory, no book, and no external medicine can give you. Only you can go through. Only you can open that door. And when you open it, it's not just the pain that leaves. It's you who returns whole, connected, alive again. This is the point where many stop, where many turn back, because crossing your own abyss requires a kind of strength that has nothing to do with resistance. It has to do with surrender, with letting go, with listening. But for those who cross, nothing ever feels the same again. Because once you see pain as a teacher, it stops hurting you and starts teaching you. That's where transformation begins. At the exact point you thought was the end. And that's why now, with this portal open, you'll begin to understand why your energy stopped flowing, and how to make it flow again. And when you move through the wound and allow the light to enter, something subtle begins to reorganize within you. The pain, which once felt like a burden, begins to dissolve. Not because it magically disappeared, but because the root that was feeding it is finally being touched. And that root wasn't in the body. It was in the vibration you were emitting, sustaining, and absorbing for so long without even realizing. Thoth used to say, nothing is truly healed until the original vibration is restored. Because the body is a consequence. The skin, the organs, the systems, they're just visible manifestations of the invisible. And the invisible in this case is your frequency, every repeating thought, every emotion you swallow, every silent belief you carry as if it were yours. All of that vibrates. And what vibrates shapes illness is not a punishment. It's a vibrational consequence. And that's more freeing than it sounds. Because if it was created from within, it can be dissolved from within. When you understand that the origin of the symptom is not in the matter, but in the frequency, you stop fighting the effect and start healing the cause. Imagine your energy field as a river. When it's clean, everything flows. Vital energy circulates, breathing is deep, thinking is clear. The body responds with ease, but when that river is polluted by dense emotions, it starts to stagnate. The water stops flowing, debris builds up, and little by little, what was once flow becomes blockage. What was once vitality becomes pain. Thoughts, healing technique, silence, visualization, and word. And when that energy starts wanting to circulate again, the body responds, but it doesn't respond chaotically as if it was something random. It responds by following an ancient map that's been drawn inside you since the beginning. This map is made up of energy centers that, though invisible to the eyes, regulate all your vitality, perception, and even your destiny. The ancients called them wheels of light. The Vedic tradition named them chakras, but Thoth also spoke of them in his Hermetic writings as dimensional gates within the self. Each chakra is more than an energy point. It is a portal that organizes an aspect of your existence. The first, at the base of the spine, governs your survival and sense of safety. When blocked, you feel constant fear, insecurity, lack of stability. The second, in the lower abdomen, governs pleasure, creativity, and relationships. If stagnant, it brings issues with the reproductive organs, trouble creating, and even deep emotional blocks. The third chakra, the solar plexus, is your center of personal power. When it's out of balance, you feel powerless, full of built-up anger, digestive problems, and a loss of direction. The fourth chakra, the heart center, governs love for yourself and for others. When closed, the body starts feeling short of breath, tightness in the chest, emotional pain that time can't heal. In the throat lies the fifth chakra, the portal of expression. When you don't speak what you feel, or you stay silent out of fear, the center becomes unwell. The voice weakens, you develop recurring sore throats, struggle to communicate, and feel like no one hears you. The sixth, located between the eyebrows, is the center of inner vision. This is where your intuition lives. When blocked, you feel lost, confused, disconnected from your purpose. And finally, at the top of the head, is the seventh, the chakra of spiritual connection. When this is active, you feel peace even in chaos. When it's closed, there's a deep existential emptiness. No achievement feels enough. No path seems right now. Imagine the impact of all of this on the body. Each organ connected to one of these centers, each gland vibrating according to the flow of these portals. And most people go through life with at least 3 or 4 of them completely blocked. This is no small detail. It is one of the deepest causes of vibrational and physical stagnation that humanity faces today. But what very few know is that there are specific physical symptoms that indicate which chakra is unbalanced. And when you start paying attention to this, your own body becomes your guide. But there is one chakra, one energy portal in particular, that governs your reality more directly than all the others. A center that regulates your manifestation, your dominant vibration, and even what you attract or repel. And when this point is activated, everything changes. Because it's not just about healing symptoms. It's about realigning your soul with your original destiny. And that's exactly what prepares you for the next step in the journey, learning to consciously activate this portal and use the healing technique the ancients considered the most powerful of all. And it all begins in silence, but not ordinary silence, the kind that turns off the outside world and allows the soul to emerge. The silence, both called the vibrational womb, where the word has not yet been born, but already exists in the form of pure vibration. That's where true healing begins, because there your energy is not distracted. It's present, and presence is the first ingredient. The second is visualization. But here, it's not just about imagining. It's about feeling as if it's already happening. Visualizing with emotion, with your body, with breath, seeing through the soul, not the eyes of the mind. When you visualize truthfully, your energy field already starts reacting as if it's real. Because to the universe, what vibrates is what matters, not what's merely thought. And then comes the word, not just any word, but the one that is born in silence after visualization. The word that carries intention, direction, and vibrational power. In ancient Egypt, sound was considered a bridge between worlds, a command, a key to access. Both taught that the right word in the right vibrational state could reprogram the body. Because the word, when conscious, does not describe reality. It creates it. So the technique is simple, yet powerful. Enter the sacred silence. Visualize with emotion what you want to transform or heal, and speak a single phrase with inner truth. That phrase doesn't have to be long. It has to be alive. It has to be yours. Because when you speak something with your whole energy field in coherence, the universe listens. You can apply this technique to any part of the body, to any symptom at any moment of blockage. But there is a way to amplify this practice, to make it even more precise, more intense, more transformative. And that amplifier is what you are about to discover now. You are the channel, the key, and the healing. This amplifier has form, frequency, and power. It exists within something you use every day, but almost never consciously notice. Your voice. The sound that comes out of your mouth is not just sound. It is vibration shaping reality. In ancient Egypt, Thoth didn't just write creation. He spoke it because every miracle to manifest needs to be sealed with the word. The spoken word is the final point in a vibrational chain. Thought generates image, image generates feeling, and feeling, when verbalized with presence, becomes a command. The field listens, the body responds, reality adjusts. But this only happens when the word is not automatic or superficial. It must be filled with intention, with alignment, with awareness. This is not about repeating positive phrases. It's about declaring with soul. A vibrational decree is not just a pretty sentence. It is a statement of existence. When you say, "My body is healing now," you're not describing something you want. You're activating a frequency where that is already real. The word is not meant to convince the universe. It is meant to align you with what already exists in the vibrational plane. Thoth taught that sound is an instrument of alchemy. In ancient records, there are references to the use of specific tones, vowel sounds, and even sacred syllables to activate energy centers. These sounds were not chosen for aesthetics. They followed geometric patterns, resonated with specific parts of the body, and opened internal portals. And that is exactly why when you speak with awareness, something inside you begins to reorganize. The right word at the right time has the power to seal the healing, to crystallize the vibrational shift that began in silence and visualization. It's as if you are marking in the field, "This is now true for me." And the field obediently reconfigures everything around you to reflect that new truth. And when that happens, you realize something surprising. It wasn't the sound that healed, nor the image, nor the technique itself. It was the state you entered. It was who you became while doing it. Because you didn't just activate healing. You remembered that you always were it. You understood the illness was not a punishment, it was a calling. And you finally answered. If this message touched something inside you, write in the comments, "I heard the call of my soul." This phrase is more than a comment. It's a sign, a vibrational command that activates the field. And if you feel that this content can transform other lives the way it's transforming yours, there's a link in the first pinned comment where you can directly support the channel and help us spread this message around the world. Every bit of support helps more people awaken to what you just felt. And don't leave yet. I've picked a special video for you to watch right after this. It's right there on the screen. Click it now, and let's keep walking this spiritual journey together.